this lesson. So today we're going to be talking about controlled forms. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right. So first I just want to kind of show y'all what we're working with here as far as what I just set up. So I'm going to go ahead and just open this up. So it's just a stupid little backend. Let's go ahead and I made a create method, an index method, and a show method. So for now, we're pretty much only going to use that index and create method. Let's go ahead and just open up our terminal and just see what the data looks like. We'll do it real quick. I'm going to cd into the character time backend, and I'm just going to run Rails S and then -p. And I like to run mine on port 9000. So I'm going to go ahead and start that on port 9000. That should be running. And then also I just want to poke around the back end for a second. So I'm just going to do that right here. I'm going to cd into the back end. I'm going to type in Rails C, and let's just see what we're working with. I'm going to go ahead and type in character.all, and cool. We have characters. All that a character has is an ID, a name, and an age. Easy as that. There's a create method that works. That's all you need to know for the back end. Awesome. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this Rails app. So cd into out of here and into our front end. I'm going to do that. And actually, now that we're in here, I'm just going to type in npm start. I'm going to close out this back end, open up the front end since that's what we're going to be working with. And like always, we're probably just going to go to our app.js. And if it's running right, it should look like, wait for it, this. Cool. Sweet. So let's open up that app.js. Cool. We have an app.js. All right. Is everybody this far so far? Everybody give me a fist of 5 on where you're at as far as just like how close are you to where I am?
John, do we need to Rails DB migrate and seed it?
Yeah, you probably do need to migrate it and see. You actually shit. Right now there are no characters for you because I didn't create a seeds file. So I made them manually using Postman. So don't worry about like actually having things there yet. We'll get to it when we get to the create, because we're going to create them from the front end anyways. But do migrate it. You don't need to seed it though for right now. Good question. Cool. So first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to clean this thing up. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to get rid of all this shit on the inside. So we're just going to delete that. And then also, let's see, we probably don't need the app.css. I'll leave it there because sometimes I like the default styling. And then also, we're going to want to refactor this to be a class. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Y'all should be comfortable with that by now. We're going to call this class app. We're going to delete these. And then we're going to say extends. And I'm just going to do component because I'm going to pull out of the React module. I am going to pull in, pull React, and then I'm going to pull out the component submodule of that.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Could you make your text just a bit bigger, please?
Sure. Thank you for letting me know.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No problemo. Is that better? That work for you?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Cool. Why is this giving me an error right now? Anybody know? Boop. Let's see if it'll tell me. Anybody know why I'm getting this error?
Needs a render.
Needs a render function. So I'm just going to go ahead, render, open that up, bam, delete that, paste it in here, tab that over. Cool. Now, in here, we probably don't just want a div. Let's actually think that I want to wrap this thing in parentheses. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Oh, shit. Wrong one. Cool. And now we should have something that doesn't break, but we also don't need this logo. Sorry about that. Probably want to put something in here. Oh, you know what it did? It fucking added those parentheses. I have some feature on here where it's like auto correcting when I save it, and I really don't want it to do that, but it's been doing that, and I need to figure out how to turn it off. But we're not going to do that this lesson. So
Yeah, it's just prettier, right?
it is prettier. There's some setting in Vim that I have to change though to turn it off prettier, because I have like a few different JavaScript plugins that I think are all working in tandem to create that feature on here. But okay, we're just going to call this the characters app for right now. And let's just save this to where we get it working. Go to Google, and do we have it working? Yep, we have it working. Great. So now we have a terrible app that does nothing but show us a title that says characters, and that's exactly what we want for right now. Sweet. So the functionality that we want to create today is we want to be able to, first of all, let's just make it so we can see the characters in the database. We'll do that after, actually. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to be able to create a character, right? Let's not bother with Rails today. We're going to do everything in React. So I want to be able to create a character, okay? So to do that, we need a form. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into iTerm, and I have to make a form here. So let's just make a hard-coded one for now. We're just going to call it form. Whoops. Nice, and we'll give it, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Wake up brain, wake up brain, wake up brain. Sorry. I had to like real quick, like shake out my head. It happens. What'd you say?
Nothing. Just with an import. I messed up too. Never mind.
Okay, no worries. So we want a form, and in this form, let's just make a couple inputs. We don't even need to use like labels, because we could just do placeholder equals. We're going to have one input that's basically just a name. And we're going to have another input. Whoops. We're going to have another input where it's going to be placeholder equals, whoops, you daisies. I have to call that person back. Age. Cool. And I think these are self-closing. That's why it's breaking. Let's see if I'm right. Yep, that was why. And for now, let's just leave it at that. So let's see what we have here. Cool. We have a really terrible looking form, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Also, we need a submit button. So let's just do one more of those. Input type equals submit. Oops. And we'll just say value equals submit character. Great. Cool. And also, we probably want to give these a type. So let's give them type equals text. We'll worry about the fancy stuff in a minute. And now if we look here, we have a form. Hooray. Great. All right. Who has an idea of what a controlled form is and why we call it that? Don't worry about the why we call it that. What is a controlled form? Does anybody have an idea? Anybody?
Is it kind of when you're controlling the values in the inputs?
Yeah, sort of. I like that. Yeah, so we're controlling the values, but what do you mean by controlling the values?
so that it knows what the value is in the end
What knows?
by state.
Yeah, so we're storing the value constantly as a piece of state. That's the answer I was looking for. And that's really all a controlled form is. All a controlled form means that as I change something here, as I change one of the inputs, I'm going to set the state, and then that's what's going to be controlling my form. Okay. Now, does anybody know how I do that in React? What event do I have to place on these inputs to get that to happen? Does anybody know?
On change.
Yeah, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put an on change event on here. And I am literally just going to put in an anonymous function that does nothing but console.logs changing. Okay, that's all we're going to do for right now. Whoops, I just quit. Damn it. Fuck. Hang on a second. I got to think. Okay, well, oops. We got to restart our servers. Not a big deal. Sorry about that. I hit a key that I shouldn't have. And now I need to restart my servers. Let me make sure that they're not running anymore. Yep. npm start. Sorry about that, y'all. Oh, cd into the front end. npm start. Cool. Jeez. It'll load eventually. But yeah, so we have this on change, giving it a save, and we're just going to go here, and we want to just look at what's happening here. So I want y'all to pay attention to this part right here. This is going to be where my console log is. Boop, changing. Boop, changing. Every time I type something, it's changing. I'm doing a lot of changes right now. If I delete all these, still just changing. Cool. Y'all get the idea, right? This is triggering some function every single time this event changes. So according to what Alex said, the whole point of a controlled form is that we have a state that represents the state of a specific element, right? An input element, and that's all that a controlled form is. So let's just show it real quick. So now that we have this on change, all we need to do is create a state for that input, right? So I'm just going to make a state object here, and in this state object, we can have a state of, well, we have age input, and then maybe what are our two? Age input and name input. So I'll just make those age input, and then we could set this equal to an empty string, and then name input set equal to an empty string. Cool. And now what I could do is on change for this input, right? I want to do is I want to say this dot set state, and the state that we're going to change is age input is going to be set to, remember the callback function. We'll write this out in a more fancy way, but the callback function for an event listener always takes in an event. So what does that mean? That means that in here, we have access to the event. And the event that the thing that I want to pull off of it is the event dot target, which the dot target just represents basically this HTML form. And then that's obviously not right. Event dot target dot value. So it's the value of this input element. Cool. And then give that a save. And then now we're just going to go ahead and check it out. And I always like to check this inside of my dev tools for React, because that's where I have access to state. So hopefully, if I start typing stuff in here, well, it looks like I messed something up because I'm typing in the name input and it's changing the age input. So let's figure out what I did there. I probably should have just said here, this probably needs to be name input. Easy enough. And we're going to go back here. And now when I start typing stuff, hello, my name is John. And it looks like I need to refresh it in order to get that to work. Let's see. Hello, my name is John. Do we see how it's just tracking that now? Cool. So really, technically, that's the only requirement to make something a controlled form. Like I was actually just parsing through the React docs recently, and that's all that a controlled form is it's a form where you're tracking the inputs on state. But we're going to take it like a step further. Does anybody have any questions on where we're at now, though? Is anybody confused by this? Everybody give me a fist of 5. If you're a perfect 5 and your camera's off, you can give me a thumbs up. 4, 4, 5, cool. I like the feedback I'm seeing here. That's good. Awesome. So now what we're going to do, I just want to drill this home on what's going on here. If I go from here, let's go down here. I want to rip all of this out and just turn it into a function. Okay, so we're actually going to make a function. We're going to call this const, I don't know, handle change equals a function. And, you know, we'll start it off with handle name change. And I have to take these things away because they're annoying the shit out of me. Sorry. So I'm going to do handle name change. And we're going to do this in arrow function. So this is going to take in, let's see. Since this callback function responds to an event listener, it passes in an event. So because this is the callback function for an event listener, it's by default going to pass in an event. And then I'm going to take all that stuff that I deleted before and paste that in, which actually I don't need that.
You don't need the const in front of that either because it's a...
Yeah, you're right. I do not need the const. That is correct. Let's see. Cool. Nice. Yeah, we do not need the const. That was a silly move on my part. Cool. So now what we have is we have all this right here. And now if I want to, inside of this on change, I can just reference that function. If anybody is having trouble with this part, and this is like really a confusing, actually it should be this dot handle change because we're on an object. If anybody's having trouble with this part, I want you to think about asking a class on ES 2015 functions and anonymous functions and that sort of thing, because sometimes it's easier to just focus on that. This stuff is confusing and React is a great time to like actually learn it, but the concept here is ES 2015 and anonymous functions and arrow functions. So
I have one quick question on that, John.
Sure.
For on change equals this dot handle name change, is it just implied that the event is being passed to that?
Yes. So yeah, exactly. So it is implied that the event is being passed into it. The other syntax of writing this would be manually putting an event here, writing a fat arrow, and then at the end of this, invoking it with event.
Yeah,
but actually, this is doing the same thing, right? Because now what this is doing is everything here actually is an event. I'm sorry, is a function. All of this is a function. And this is just one layer of function effectively between. So this is saying on the on change event, when something changes, pass event into this function. Then after you pass it into this function, you're manually passing it into this function. So you're just creating another layer of function, if that makes sense. It's kind of far-fetched at first until you really think about it pretty deep a few times.
Yeah, the thing I kind of compare it to is like when you're getting a response and then you parse the response and then you just can do like .then console log without putting anything into it.
Exactly. That's exactly the same concept. So in general, there's this concept of callback functions, and callback functions are always invoked with some types of arguments. For a .then, what goes into a callback function? It's the thing that you return from the previous .then or from an original promise, right? And then what goes into the callback function for, like, I don't know, your applicatives, that depends on the applicative that you're using. But that's why that's really kind of its own separate lesson. That concept goes kind of deep. Really good to learn, though. It's going to help with a lot of stuff if y'all choose to request a lesson on that. Whoops. You navigate around Vim with J and K. So that's why sometimes you'll see me enter insert mode and I try to go up and then I press K. If y'all are wondering why I randomly type J's and K's, it's because I suck at Vim. Cool. All righty. So now we should have this working. And I just want to prove to you that that does work, even though it's expanded out like that, right? Oh, probably got to refresh this. Got to go here. And we're going to just type some stuff. Bam. Cool, it works. Great. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to actually just do this again with our age. So I'm going to go ahead and for now, I'm just going to copy this and then we're going to paste it. And this time we're going to change it from name to age. And this time we're going to do age. And this is not the most efficient way of doing this, but for now, this is the way that we're going to do it. Cool. I don't know why this defaulted to looking like this and this defaulted to looking like that. That's really annoying for me. Whatever. Then inside of here, we are going to make an on change equals, and we're going to say this dot handle age change, and that should do the trick. Cool. And let's see if we're tracking both of them now. So if I type in hello, cool. Oh, that didn't seem to work. I guess it's this one. Cool. 1, 2, 3. Cool. So they're working. And also, we probably should have actually made the age, instead of type text, we should have probably made it number. That's just another HTML type. So now I should not be able to type in, yeah, I can't type in letters, but I can type in numbers, which is exactly what I want. And now I have to get rid of, I don't know why this is highlighting. I don't like that. Cool, great. Now let's actually do something with this. So now what we want to do is we want to create some characters. Okay, so what event is going to fire off me creating a post to the backend? Anybody have an idea?
Can you ask that one more time?
What event is going to fire off a fetch call to the backend? What event would we want to fire off a fetch call to the backend?
A submit.
Yeah, let's do a submit button, a submit event. All right, cool. So we're just going to do an on submit, and this is going to equal. We'll make a function and we'll call it this dot handle submit. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to make one called handle submit, and here we're going to create a function called handle submit. What event gets passed in? What object gets passed into the handle submit function and why? Or actually, I don't need that. Anybody got an idea? What object gets passed through as an argument here?
Is it the event?
Yeah, why?
It's the submit event.
Yeah, so why? What is it about the submit event that makes it a pass event through?
That you submitted on the whole form.
It's actually just that it's an event listener. Every callback function to an event listener passes in an event every single time, right? So handle submit is a callback function to the onSubmit event listener. So since it's a callback function to the onSubmit event listener, and since it's a callback function in general to an event listener, every callback function to an event listener, I'll say it again, takes in an event. Now that's a weird concept. So like, I'm not expecting y'all to completely understand that at first, but try to drill that into your brain. The callback function for an event listener always passes in the event. Cool. All right, now what are we going to do with that? Any ideas? Anybody want to just give me a fist of 5? I just want a general checkup, see how everyone's feeling right now. Where's the energy at? Everybody give me a fist of 5 with energy levels. See a 3, I see a thumbs up, I see a 4. I see some non-participation, that's okay. This stuff can be kind of rough, okay? So let's just think about it. What do I want to do to submit a new character? What things are going to happen? Right now, all we care about is fixing the back end, right? So what do we think I'm going to do in here?
You can do a post fetch.
Yeah, we're going to do a fetch. We're going to do a fetch. And how am I going to write this?
Well, put in your URL to your endpoint.
So the URL is going to be http:// localhost localhost 9000, and the endpoint is characters. And then what else do I have to have in here? Whoops. What else goes in here?
Method post.
Yeah, so the options. So here we're going to have method will be post. I'm probably going to mess this up. So if anybody wants to throw some feedback, that would be very warranted. Headers is going to be its own object. Inside of here, we have application. No, it's content type. Oh, look at that. It did it for me. Oh, beautiful. Content type application, not JSON. I don't think we need the other one. And then inside of here, we have a body. What's going to go in the body?
JSON.stringify.
Oh, yeah. Whoops. JSON.stringify. And then that should be outside of here. Cool. And it's going to save it for me. That is kind of nice about the autosave. Cool. And then what's going to go in here? What are our two properties?
Name and age.
Yeah, so we're just going to do name. And what's our name going to be? Where am I getting my name from?
State.name input.
Beautiful. So since we went through all that trouble of getting our state to track these inputs, we can now just pull it right out of our state. And age is going to equal this dot state dot age input. Bam, bam. And the last thing I want to do is on this one, we want to do a dot then, and we just want to do the response goes to response.json, and also we want to do I think I should do it like this, bam, and then probably something like that, and then another dot then console.log. Oh, we're just going to console.log that response for now. Do that. Cool. Beautiful. Give this a save. And now, if I go here, let's actually try making one. We're going to make a character. We're going to call it J Boy Higgins. And the age is going to be 22. I'm not 22. I'm lying. And let's see. Uh-oh, doesn't look like we got a response.
I think we got to prevent default, yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Good call. In this, we have to prevent default. So how do I prevent default here?
Event.prevent default.
Event.prevent default. Beautiful. Give that a save, go here. Now, if I type something in, we'll make it Jordan sample master. Age 0. You're 0 years old. Cool, there we go. So it looks like we've created some characters. Now, I already have some characters in my backend, so I'm going to have more than y'all. But let's take now to just do some simple React stuff. Let's actually just get some characters to show up on here. We have a backend, we might as well. So my first question is, and then we'll start cleaning it up after when it makes sense. So my question is, how am I going to do an initial fetch call here? Where's that going to go?
Component didn't mount.
Yeah, why?
So that it does not continually fetch while it is rendering.
Right, so we only want to go and make this fetch call when the component mounts. So we're going to make a fetch. In fact, we can actually just do this. We can just, does that work? Inside there? Nope, that didn't work. There we go. Cool. And we are going to fetch. Let's do that. And then, bam. And this time it's a regular fetch. So we're going to do the standard. Response goes to response.json. And what do I typically want to do with a fetch call when I get it? What am I going to do with this now that I have it?
You can set state and
Yeah.
show up on the page.
Yep. So we're going to create a state of characters. But in general, the way that you make changes in React is by changing the state. So if we want to make a change with these characters that we're getting, we want to set state of characters to equal what? Let me go here.
Here's
Yeah, characters. Sweet. We also need the characters. State initialized as an empty array. Bam. Let's see if we have our characters coming in. So give this a refresh. Bam. Cool. We got our characters coming in. Nice. And how am I going to now? Let's create a little section in our HTML of characters. So
I do have a question here. So you put character in state with a default of an empty. Actually, can you go up a bit?
Mhm.
Of an empty array. Could you? Okay, because you made it an array.
in general, you want to keep the data type the same. Even if you're like changing it, So like an empty array is a simple version of a filled out array. An empty string is the simplest version of like a filled out string. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to be like, oh, characters equals null and then set characters equal to an array. That's just
But
bad practice.
You don't need to put characters as an empty array there. You could put it this dot set state characters colon array of characters, couldn't you? Like you would just add it if it doesn't find characters.
For the initial fetch, we're rewriting it, the entire thing, right? So the initial fetch, we're getting all of them. So I don't have to, you're talking about the spread operator, is that what you're talking about?
Not the spread operator. If you put the second characters there in an array,
You're saying that this should be like this?
yeah, and then just get rid of it in your state, wouldn't it just add it to your state? Because it doesn't find it.
This
You
is
have to
like,
initialize everything.
the
and then-
problem is that what data type is characters? Characters is already an array. So then what I'm doing is I'm setting characters to equal an array where the first term is an array of characters. Does that make sense? So let's say I have one character. What that would wind up equaling is like the first character object. That's what this would wind up equaling. Because characters is already an array. Does that make sense?
I think what he's asking is like, does everything have to be initialized in state, or could you basically just set state characters to characters without having it initialized as an empty array?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Can you repeat that question again?
So like, does everything that you're going to set a state to have to be initialized in that state object, or can you set a state for characters without actually initializing it as an empty array?
I think you can set it without initializing it, but it's worse practice. I think it makes it less readable in general. It's better to just initialize it.
Okay.
In general, if you're going to have something in your state, initialize it with whatever type of
State.
Yeah. In
I was
general, you should be initializing it with some value.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was my question. Just good practice. Cool.
Yep. Cool. I think you can do it though. Sorry about that. I just didn't fully understand the question. Awesome. So next thing that we want to talk about is, well, we have these characters. What are we going to do with them? So now I want to actually take these characters and render something based off of whatever they are. So I'm actually just going to put that in this section. Cool. Inside of here, I'm just going to do JSX, and we're going to map over these characters for now. So I'm just going to do characters. Oh, whoops. This dot state dot characters. And we are going to do a dot map. And now guess what? We're going to look at another callback function, but this time the thing that goes in here is the element. So in this case, it's going to be a character. And we are going to return for each one. We're just going to return, let's just do on H1. Well, we'll do a div. Let's do, let's open it up in parentheses. We'll start with a div. And inside of that div, we'll have, I don't know, an H1. With, let's just say the character's name. And then we'll have an H3 with the character's age. And hopefully I didn't mess anything up too bad. And I really hate the way this auto corrected that. Let's see if it works. First, let me get rid of that logo shit because that's annoying the hell out of me. Get rid of that. And then also, we're running into some error here.
I think you didn't get rid of the brackets on characters. I don't know if that did anything. Or
What do you
yeah,
mean?
that when I asked you my question, you didn't get rid of the brackets on characters. In
Line of
state,
code?
Line
In
50.
state?
That's an array of an array.
Oh, yep, that'll do it. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Quick question too. I get this error a lot. Is each child in index should have a unique key prop?
Yeah, so all this is saying is that you can set a key value in like an attribute of keys value you can set. So it's really simple. It's just like in this element that you're returning, you have to give it a key value and then give it some unique value from all the other key values. So in this case, I'm just going to pull out the character's ID and that should do the trick. And we watch this. Bam, should go away. And it went away.
Cool, thanks.
Pretty easy fix once you know how to do it. Cool. So now we have some characters. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to take this and just make it like, let's now go through the process of like, how do we take this form and make it its own thing? How do we take this section and make it its own thing? Would y'all like to walk through that? I think that'd be a good use of like 15 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So what we're going to do first is let's get all this shit from the form. Okay. Whoops. I don't know what I just did. Bam. So we're going to go up 12 and I'm going to delete that. And what we're going to do is we're going to hop into our little nerd tree here. That's what this plugin is called, is nerd tree. I love it. I just love the name. It's not that great of a plugin. And I'm going to go ahead and let's just make a components folder. So we're going to call it components. And then also,
is it supposed to render when you submit the character right away?
no, because we didn't configure that yet.
Okay.
Do you want to configure that first?
Yeah,
Or
I had that issue yesterday configuring that.
let's just get this, since we already started this tangent, let's go ahead and, or I'm going to call this create character form. But since we already started this tangent, let's just go ahead and follow it through. And it shouldn't take long to just get all this stuff figured out. So now in here, let's see. Cool, we have our form. Also, I don't know what's going on there. Cool. All right. So in general, should this be a functional component or a class component, and why?
Because we can just, because it doesn't need state. That's got, we can pass down state as props.
Interesting. So actually, it does need state. Why does it need state? Because in general, controlled forms are like our exception to the rule of something that's going to need to have state, because we typically track the state of what's going on inside of the form in the form rather than in at. This is just one of those examples of like, oh, okay, controlled forms are like a smart component, if that makes sense. Cool. So we're going to start by just go ahead and making this, what do we call it? Create character form. And then we're going to say it extends component, open that up. And then all this shit should be nested inside of the render. And when we return, it's going to be inside of that. And here is just going to be these lines. There we go. Great. Sweet. So first, let's see. What else am I going to need for this? What else am I going to need to add here?
Those functions.
Yeah, we're going to need the function. Well, actually, not the functions. Well, one of the functions we'll need. Yeah, I guess we'll need both of these functions. We'll need these functions. Sorry about that. Cool. So we can go ahead, copy them over. Nice. And then we're also going to need some of the
It's going a
state.
little fast.
Sorry about that.
Can I see
Thank
your
you.
create character JS one more time?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I got
No,
a little
yeah,
carried
I
away.
don't have any of that in there.
Yeah, my bad. I'm a little disconnect. There's certain things that go way faster in Vim, and I forgot that I had to do it the old way in VS Code. Specifically, like flipping between files goes way faster in Vim. So that's something that I just did not realize I was going too fast.
It's okay.
Thank you for letting me know also. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, they mentioned that yesterday, and I was like, you know, this is all gonna like not work and break once we get to the later part.
Much better for you to slow me down. I personally would way rather you slow me down and follow along. So for this lesson.
Okay, and then handle change and handle click.
Well, we need to submit as well.
Not in here, we don't need to submit. We'll talk about why.
Okay, I think I'm good.
Okay. So we are gonna need, what we are gonna need is our state. So not all of this state, we only want some of it. I'm gonna copy over the whole thing. So I'm gonna copy over the whole thing, and in here, the state that we want in here are the inputs, right? The state that we don't want in here are the characters. So now what I have is in my app class, I have the state of characters, and in my input form, I have the input states. Does that make sense? That kind of like is intuitive when you think about it, right? Because let's talk about why we need to not have characters in the character form. Let's say later on, I'm going to create a section that lists all these characters, or even just the way this is written now, right? Here, if I have a section here, and this section is dependent on characters, I can't pass state up. I can only pass state down, right? What I can do is set the state of characters from inside of here by passing a function down to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but now we don't have this .state.name input, so that handle submit in the app component is not.
Yep, that's true. So now what I would do is I would say, instead of calling this a handle submit, I would change this, and it's no longer going to take in an event. Now what this is going to be is this is going to be a, I don't know, I would call it, let's say, add character. We'll say add, what's a good name for this? I guess we could say add character for now. Right? And now instead of taking in an event, we're gonna have to create something inside of the other function that is now going to, oh, I don't know, we could pass in the event still. I'll show you how we could pass in the event, but we also have to now pass in, right? We could do the character name, or we could do like a character object, but we could do a character name, or we'll just do name and age, I guess would be a good way for now. So what this now means is that this add character function is we're going to have to put in a name and an age in order for it to work, right? How are we going to do that? Well, the first thing is we need to pass this function down, okay? So I need to take this function and pass it down. How do I pass down something? First, let's actually import the form and do all that jazz. So how do I import the form here?
Import create character form.
I almost said from React, but where is it going to be imported from?
Create character form, or yeah, components create character form.
So dot slash, is it dot? Did I mess something up? Dot slash.
And then just slash create.
What am I
character
messing
form.
up here? Hang on a second. Oh, I put it in public. This should not have gone in, none of this should have gone in public. Sorry about that. This whole thing here, which I could move pretty easily, should have gone actually in source. I was like, what's going on? Let's see. Cool. And now when I look in source, I have components in there. Sorry about that. Cool. But yeah, it should be from dot slash. Let's see if it loads properly now. Yep, component slash create character form. Great. So we've imported create character form, and then we also need to import it here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and we'll put it at the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it here, and I'm just gonna type in create character form, and we're gonna pass in, what the fuck was that? That was bizarre. We're gonna pass in this function. So we're gonna call it add character equals this dot add character. Cool. And let's see if I broke anything, because I'm not sure if I did or not. Oh, does not contain a default export. Oh, okay. Well, that sure explains what's wrong. What's my problem?
You need to export it in your create character.
Yeah, so I'm just going to type in export default here. Bam. Let me give this a save. See if that worked. Cool, it worked. Nice. All right, but let's go back. So, oh, whoops. Now that I'm here, what the function being passed in, right, is called add character. So that means I need to make use of that add character function here. So now that add character, let's look at that. It takes in an event, a name, and an age. So remember how before I was talking about like an anonymous function, how you can kind of like use it as a layer in between? That's exactly what we would do here. So if this thing is going to take in an event no matter what, let's give it an event by default. So we'll give it an event. Now the order in which we invoke this function, because remember now this function here, except for it's not, it won't be handle submit, it will be handle, sorry, it's not even handle, it's this dot props dot, because we're getting it from the, so we're getting it from the parent component, we're getting it from add character, right? So because we're passing it in as props, we have to pull it off the props object, and it's this dot props dot add character, and then inside of here, the order is event, name, and age. So let's start with event. What do we think name and age are going to be, though?
Name
Age
input.
input, name input.
Yeah, it's going to be this dot name input, and then this dot age input. So we're going to give that a save, and now we're going to go to Google, and we're just going to see if it still works like it did. So it's not going to add anything to the front end because we just haven't created that functionality yet. We're going to call it Awesome Alex, and the age is going to be 88 for some reason. I'm going to hit submit, and if this works, we will have submitted a character. Hey, it looks like it did not work. Why did it not work? Probably it looks like
This dot props, wouldn't it just be props or state? Sorry.
no, you can't do this dot prop. Oh yeah, I need this dot state. Here's what it is. This dot props is correct. Why is this dot props correct? Because this is not a functional component. So because it's a class component still, props is passed through as an object. Does that make sense? And it's bound to the this on the create character form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Cool.
In your app.js, did you switch in your post in the body the name to just name, right? And age to age?
And by the way, this works. But what'd you say in my app.js? It works now. Sorry, I just wanted to confirm. So in app.js, which is here, what were you asking?
On name this dot state dot name input, does that need to be now like name and age?
Oh yeah, that should be name and age. Why is that working? That's weird. That shouldn't have worked. Something's weird there. But
Well, everything turned out null again.
oh, it did turn out null. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
It looked like it.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what it should be. It should be name and age. That's exactly correct. Let's see if I was right, or let's see if you were right. Let's find out. So I'm gonna go ahead and type in hello world. Age, it's gonna be 9 years old. Great. Cool. So it's working now. Nice. But yeah, that's exactly right. Cool. Nice. Is anybody confused by that? That's the trippiest part about React. Honestly, is to me is passing a function down, knowing that here, this is actually talking to about this object here, like app. And then you pass that down and then change it in the child component. That's the trippiest part. So if that's the most confusing part about React to you, great, because that's the most confusing part about React that we teach here. So that's fine. And you'll get it eventually too. Awesome. Now let's fix the one chunk of functionality, which is when we add our character, it's not actually adding a character to state, right? So the problem here is that I'll add a character here and it won't fix until I reload it. That's no bueno. We got to fix that. How do I add a state? How do I add a character to the front end here without even worrying about this fetch? What would I do to add a character to the front end here? Any ideas? No? Cool.
This is where I got tripped up yesterday because I didn't know how to add it to, you know, whatever section you make to display them.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways we could do it. One of the ways we could do it is in a .then here. So in other words, here we get another, let's just do it that way first. It's easier, but it's not really the right way of doing it. But for now, I think it'll be easier. So do we notice how when, let's say I create one, right? I'll create one. We're going to call it Kick-Ass Cassie. Age 21, 212. You're 212 years old. All right, cool. I'm going to click submit. And now that I made this, so if we look at like all the shit that comes back, I should be able to just on the front end take whatever comes back here and add it. So what I could do is just in the .then, because that's what's coming out of this console.log, right? So what I could do here is I can go ahead and say for the character that comes back, what do we want to do? We want to this dot set state, and now our characters is going to be equal to, and this is maybe where you were getting confused with like the whole array thing, which by the way, if any of y'all are like feel like you're struggling with React, don't even go to the hooks lesson. I think you'd be better suited in here or just doing something else instead, because the hooks lesson is not really going to help you unless you feel comfortable with the class stuff. It's going to maybe hurt more than it helps. Just my opinion. You can obviously go to whatever you want, but yeah. So inside of here, we're setting characters, and it's going to be equal to this dot state dot characters. But here's probably where you're getting tripped up. Now what I have to do is use this thing called the spread operator. And effectively what that does is it dumps all of the stuff out of here into this outside array. And then we're also going to have to add a new character, right? And this new character's name is going to be, yeah, the name is going to be character.name. That character is just coming from this response. And I completely butchered that.
Wouldn't it just be just regular? Oh, it would be just, you're just shoving in the name. Can't you just shove in just the whole character?
Oh yeah, I could shove in the whole character. That's exactly right. That'd be way easier. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
That'd be way easier. Cool. And that's one way of doing it. But the problem is that that's not really like the React way of doing it. It's just not responsive is the reactive is the problem. The whole point of like optimistic rendering is that the front end updates before the back end does. So let's say I seed something here. We're gonna make a Kevin 1 age 88. And when I submit this, it will work. Maybe set state. This dot state dot character is not iterable.
It's characters.
Where?
I think.
Oh yeah, it is. It should be this dot state dot characters. That's exactly what it is. Cool. Give this a refresh. So it did create one. Let's create Kevin 2 now. Age 19. Bam. Oh, okay, so it did work, I think. Did it create it? No, it did not create Kevin 2. It created Kevin 2.
It added it now.
What?
Yeah, I added it now, but after a while.
I don't normally do it this way, by the way. Let me console.log character. Floofer 1. Cool. Interesting. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. Why would that not work? Oh, it's because this should not be in there. That's why. That should not be in curly braces. Right? Because it already is in curly braces because it's already an object. So now when I do it, it should work. Floofer. Doomslayer. There it goes. Sorry about that. But the problem is that the way that this is set up right now, it actually has to wait for the backend to send a response. And when the response is coming from my local computer, that doesn't take too long. But let's imagine that my backend, let's imagine this is Facebook, and my backend is in California, and you're in Colorado, right? That means that the whole signal has to travel all the way to Colorado, all the way to California and back before you can update your thing. And ain't nobody got time for that. So what you do is you actually update it on your front end first. And fortunately, it's almost the exact same thing. But let's actually just get rid of this part first. We're just going to kind of do an either or here, right? So what we're going to do now is instead, and we can write this before or after the fetch. It doesn't really matter because the fetch runs asynchronously. We'll just do it before the fetch to drive the point home. That what I can do is I could do, before I do anything with a fetch at all, what I could do is I could say const new character equals, and we'll give it some absurd ID for now. This is not the proper way of doing it. Well, let's just give it an absurd ID of 99999. Or maybe even better yet, you could give it an ID of like -1 or something like that. That's never actually going to come from your backend. And then we give it an ID, we give it a name equals name, and then we give it an age equals age. Give that a save. Oops. Give that a save. And what I should be able to do is the exact same line of code that I had inside of my dot then, the this dot set state here, characters is going to be equal to whatever this dot state dot characters is at a given moment, except for what we have to do is wrap that in, wrap that in square brackets. Whoa. And then, whoa. Dump it out using the spread operator. And then our next term is going to be our new character. And now what we should be doing is the exact same thing, except for this will be optimistic instead of pessimistic. So let's give this a refresh, and we're going to call it Broom Slayer, age 3, bam, and hey, look, we have a new character on there. But now it's not from the back end. Is anybody confused by that?
It doesn't need an ID, does it?
So
Why does it need an ID?
I gave it an ID of -1 just so it didn't break the whole like key should have a key of something, right?
Oh, okay.
But then the nice thing that I could do with this is now I can just go back. So this is like the goal here is you would clean up the response. So in other words, whoops, I have an incorrect ID on there. And now what I would do is I would clean it up with a back-end response. So what I would actually do is say like, oh, okay, we're not going to do it right now. But basically what you would do is you would get rid of the last term on there. And then whatever your backend spits back out, you would basically swap out that object. Does that make sense? It's a little bit mathy doing that. So we're just not going to do it right now. Cool. All right. If you are struggling to understand all of this, that's totally okay. There is kind of a lot to unpack there. So just however you're feeling, get yourself to a higher energy level because you deserve it. Y'all are doing well. I'm going to go ahead, stop sharing, and I'm going to stop the recording.